Late February and early March 2026, across the snow-covered farmland of Novosibirsk, Siberia, teams of men in hazmat suits, backed by local police, descend on private farms. Workers toss animal carcasses onto massive open-air pyres. They seize cows, bulls, sheep, and even family dogs, sending thousands of animals to the fire. The Russian Ministry of Agriculture quickly issued an official explanation for the Scorched Earth campaign. They claimed the region was suffering from an outbreak of pasteurellosis. Pasteurellosis is a common bacterial infection that targets the respiratory systems of livestock. This flowchart illustrates the glaring contradiction in the government's story. The standard veterinary protocol for pasteurellosis, clearly outlined in Russia's own agricultural laws, mandates quarantine and a simple course of antibiotics. It explicitly prohibits the mass extermination of a herd. Yet, the state bypassed the medicine and went straight to the matches. This chart shows the severe financial toll exacted on local farmers. While the market value for beef sits at a staggering 752 rubles per kilo, the government forced farmers to accept a compensation rate of just 171 rubles. That is a payout 4 times below market value, with the state promising the funds might arrive 9 months later. Facing total financial ruin, the farmers fought back. Villagers in places like Koziha blocked roads leading to the animal burial grounds, physically barricading the path of the veterinary teams. They recorded public appeals directly to Moscow, stating clearly that their livestock showed 0 symptoms of illness and that authorities were hauling healthy animals to the fire without ever taking a single drop of blood or milk for testing. The state responded with force. Riot police locked down entire villages. Authorities arrested a local council deputy for organizing unsanctioned protests, and shortly after, detained a journalist attempting to cover the mass cullings under charges of spreading false information. Standard medical protocol for a bacterial infection suggests a bottle of penicillin. In Novosibirsk, the state response instead involved riot police, gag orders, and the midnight incineration of untested herds. To understand what a government actually does when faced with a highly infectious outbreak, we have to look outside of Russia. At the exact same time the Siberian fires were burning in early 2026, a massive wave of livestock culling was sweeping across Western Europe. These European countries were executing a strict veterinary protocol known as stamping out. Stamping out is a legally mandated containment strategy where the discovery of a single infected animal on a premises requires the immediate execution of every other susceptible animal in that herd, even if they show absolutely no symptoms. We saw this play out in real time in the Republic of Cyprus. In late February, veterinary officials confirmed an outbreak of foot and mouth disease, or FMD. FMD is a highly contagious viral disease that causes painful blisters in cloven-hoofed animals and severely cripples agricultural exports. Because FMD is so easily transmitted, the European Union strictly enforces its stamping out policy. Even when Cypriot officials begged the European Commission for permission to spare their asymptomatic herds, the EU denied the request. By mid-March, authorities had destroyed over 15,100 sheep, goats, and cattle. This blind adherence to total eradication devastated the agricultural community. In Cyprus, furious farmers parked their vehicles to block access to their barns, even mounting a coffin onto a truck to symbolize their anger. Similar scenes erupted in France over a different outbreak, where hundreds of farmers used their tractors to shut down major highways, resulting in violent clashes with police holding cans of tear gas. The destruction in Cyprus and France was severe, but it was executed under strict, transparent legal mandates designed to stop highly contagious, incurable viruses. The European authorities named the disease, proved the infections, and followed the law. The Russian authorities in Siberia did none of those things. Across the Atlantic, the United States offers a clear example of how agricultural policies are precisely calibrated to the specific lethality of a pathogen. When the highly pathogenic avian influenza, known as H5N1, hit American poultry farms in early 2026, the U.S. Department of Agriculture was merciless. Because the virus is almost entirely fatal to birds, the USDA ordered the stamping out of entire flocks, destroying roughly 9 million chickens and turkeys in a single 30-day period. This graphic breaks down the U.S. response to the exact same H5N1 virus across different species. While the poultry numbers skyrocket due to stamping out, the dairy cow side tells a different story. Because cows infected with H5N1 typically recover in a week and face a mortality rate of less than 2%, the government does not call them. They simply place the herd under a 30-day quarantine. The global standard is consistent. Governments are highly reluctant to destroy surviving, curable livestock unless absolutely forced to by an unstoppable viral threat. If the Russian state is bypassing medical treatments and annihilating massive numbers of cattle, they are not fighting a mild bacteria. Applying this global context back to the fires in Siberia changes the calculation. The violent, militarized enforcement of a mass culling points toward the presence of a far more destructive virus than the official diagnosis of pasteurellosis suggests. Information leaking out of the Russian agricultural sector points to a specific culprit. Industry insiders confidentially told Russian journalists that the supposed bacterial infection is actually a massive, uncontrolled outbreak of foot and mouth disease. The definitive proof of this crisis doesn't come from inside Russia, but from right next door. Between early and late February 2026, the government of Kazakhstan quietly enacted a sweeping ban on the import of all livestock and animal products from over a dozen Russian regions. This map highlights the scope of the embargo. Severing trade ties across 12 distinct regions is an extreme economic measure, typically reserved for containing a transboundary episodic disaster that a neighboring nation can no longer ignore. As the diplomatic walls went up, the reality on the ground in Novosibirsk revealed an even darker layer to the cover-up. The state's eradication campaign was highly selective. While the police and hazmat teams aggressively targeted the personal, small-scale plots of independent farmers, the region's massive agricultural holdings were completely spared. One prominent dairy giant, whose director conveniently sits on the Regional Agrarian Committee, saw 0 animals culled, even as the small family farms around it were entirely liquidated. The events of early 2026 expose a deep rot in the global agricultural system. Whether it is a rigid European bureaucracy forcing the destruction of perfectly healthy herds on a Mediterranean island, or an authoritarian regime in Russia selectively burning out small farmers to hide a massive contagion, the result is exactly the same. The very protocols designed to secure the global food supply have become the exact instruments destroying the people who produce it.